Like if you look at the polls right now, this is what's so stunning to me. So if you're vaxxed, you should feel safe. The vaccines are extremely effective in preventing hospitalization and death. And people are like, well, it doesn't work against breakthrough cases. Who gives a shit? Like seriously, since when have we cared about you getting a mild case of the flu? This has never been a public health issue, right? You've had the flu 10 times. I've had the flu 10 times. We've all had colds. Like nobody sits around worrying day in and day out, oh my God, if I don't wear a mask, I'm going to get a mild case of the flu and I might miss a day. No one's ever cared about this in human history. But now we're supposed to care about that. But if you're vaxxed, you're good to go, right? You are. Just that's what the data say. If you are unvaxxed, then depending on your age bracket, you may be good to go or you may not particularly be good to go. And that depends on your risk tolerance, right? And so if you're 65 and you're unvaxxed, then you should be a little more worried. And if you are 30 and unvaxxed, you should be a little more worried than the guy who's unvaxxed, but certainly not as worried as the guy who's 65. But we have no gradations of worry because basically we have now broken down the country into the people who care and the people who don't care. And the people who care, this is what's created this weird kind of paralysis in the population. Everybody who is worried is vaxxed. Everybody who is unvaxxed is unworried. Okay, which should be the precise opposite, right? It should be that if you're vaxxed, you're unworried, and if you're unvaxxed, you're deeply worried because you might get sick. Instead, if you're unvaxxed, it's because you've had the choice to get vaxxed, and you chose not to, and you're not worried. And if you're vaxxed, you're still sitting around going, man, I can't go back to work because what if the sky falls, and what if there's a new variant, and what if somebody gives me a breakthrough case?
But how much of it is actual concern versus a virtue signaling? For instance, you bring up the term Latinx or Latinx. Nobody who's Latin or Mexican, no one gives two shits about it. They don't give a flying fuck. But this is white people concerned on their behalf.
It is the
now,
stupidest
are
thing in the
they
entire
really
world.
concerned is my question, because I don't think they are concerned. I think they're pushing something out there. And I don't think the vaxxed are fully concerned about the Trump voting hillbillies who've, in their purview, who've decided to not get vaxxed. I think there's a much more of a signal than there is a actual concern.
So I think like most things in American life, there's what the elitists, like the people at the top of institutions think, and then how that bleeds down. So just like in Hollywood, single motherhood is cool, you just don't engage in it, and then it bleeds down to the populace, and population watches the movies, they're like, oh, single motherhood must be cool, and they take it seriously. I think the same thing has happened with regard to vaccinations and masking. The elites keep saying, well, I'm deeply worried. And then London Breed goes to a bar, right? The mayor of San Francisco. She goes to a bar and goes to a concert and she says, oh, the spirit was moving me, so I didn't have to wear my mask. So she obviously doesn't care. Or Gavin Newsom going to the French Laundry, right? He didn't care. He was fine. But I think that the way that bleeds down to a lot of people who know that the way they are going to be morally judged is by whether they wear the mask or not, right? Because if they get sick and they didn't wear the mask, this means they are bad. So for a lot of those people, I think that they actually are kind of worried. And it's a lizard brain worry. It's not like a rational worry, because if you look at the stats, they shouldn't be worried. But if you just keep reading in the media over and over and over that, man, it's so dangerous out there, like Delta is, you could get seriously, and even if you don't die, you might be hospitalized. And if you're not hospitalized, you could have long COVID. And if you don't get long COVID, you might be out of work for a couple of days or infect somebody else. I think that the way that bleeds down from the elitists who actually know the data and don't give a shit to everybody else who's sort of like second order watching this stuff, I think that does make, so perfect example, so I love my in-laws, but my in-laws watch Israeli TV. Israel has been like rabid on COVID, right? They have a green vaccine passport, and they're now requiring that you be triple vaxxed in order to get your vaccine passport to go anywhere. And they're having a real problem getting young people triple vaxxed because it turns out the data on that is kind of scanty. You don't need to be triple vaxxed if you're 30, probably. And so but my in-laws watch Israeli TV constantly because they're Israeli. And so all they see from Israeli TV is, oh, they're so worried. So when we went out to California, they were actually like they're triple vaxxed. They're bulletproof, man. They could walk into traffic and the car could be made of COVID and they'd be fine.
COVID car. New series coming to Daily Wire. COVID car.
Well, that's basically just any car with James Corden in it. It's just a disease-filled
COVID.